part of the Temple Beth Avodah choir, the intergenerational choir. Come on up and join us on the steps.
Shana Tova, everybody. It's so good to see all of you on this kind of dark and misty first day of the new year. We are part of this glorious tradition of gathering together, and in that process, to give thanks. To give thanks for the things that matter most to us, that often we ignore or we assume. Now, of course, we have to assume the good things, because if we spent too much time counting them all, it would just become impossible. And if we thought about all the things that could go wrong, we would be paralyzed. So part of life is making assumptions about the future and what will happen, and the lack of asteroids colliding with the Earth, and from that list down. But in the meantime, we give thanks right now for being here and being alive, and to show our gratitude to the Holy One, gratitude to each other, because if we weren't here, we couldn't constitute a minyan, and then we would just have to go home. That would be a drag. So thank you all for coming and making this extraordinary minyan of members and guests and friends of Temple Beth Avodah. If you'll turn to your left and right, in front of you and behind you, say Shana Tova. Say hello to the people. around you. Maybe you don't know them. Make that connection. And I'm going to front load a couple other comments. Number one, as I've said before, some of you are here completely under duress. It was not your first choice for a Monday afternoon. I get that. I empathize with that. But you're here. Some of you are here and you've been looking forward to this. And in your blood, in your mind, in your DNA, there flows this sense that whenever you hear da 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 da, you go, oh yeah, New Year is here. And it's a great feeling. So we have you long-time High Holy Day people, you, who are embracing this moment as you have since you were little, or maybe that you adopted as you got older. Maybe it's something new. Perhaps you came into Judaism as an adult, and so it has extra kind of resonance. No matter how you come into it, we're so glad you're here. If you are a friend or a member of a family or related to somebody and you yourself are not Jewish, we welcome you. You know, this, as we say, is the ultimate big tent. In this space, what matters is not the faith that you are as you enter. It's your neshama, it's your soul. And I assure you, every human being has one of those. And it's about resonating with the sense of being around other people who care as you do, as you want to. And so you are welcome. Everyone who is here, whether you want to be here or not, I welcome you. And I want to urge you to use this time for yourself. If you're a Siddur that is a Machzor person, if you love your prayer book, then this is the time. It's a great prayer book. And if you're people, you don't like the prayer book, you don't like to be bound by it, you don't like the words in it, you don't even know what the word prayer really means for you. Gam Zelatov, that's also just fine. Use it as a space to think, to meditate, to reflect. And if you fall asleep, which is conceivable, I only ask that if someone sitting next to you monitors you, and if you start to snore, you have the sacred obligation to give them a zetz with your elbow. Not painful, but a wake-up call, as we call it. Finally, well, it's not finally, but in the meantime, before Susan yanks me, to all of you who are helping put the service together, this magnificent choir, this multi-generational choir, our musicians, and you, all together, we make this happen. And it is so glorious that we can build this service together. So I encourage you, I invite you to sing, to celebrate, to open your hearts. No one does that for us. No one can inspire us as long as we decide we're not going to be inspired. Give it a shot. It's okay. Stand when you want to stand. Sit when you want to sit. If it's hard to stand up, don't. If you'd rather not, don't. If you want to stand up for the whole service, fine. This is our space that we share, but within it, each one of us brings what we are and who we are, and we'll help each other get to where we want to go. That's what a congregation is all about. And so, before we sing the beautiful Matovu, if you're wearing a talit on this afternoon, if you'd please rise and join me as we do our blessing on this talit. Those around you who are not wearing a talit, those of you who are sitting, just kind of close your eyes and listen for the sound that the talises make as they whoosh through the air onto the shoulders of the men and women around you. It's a beautiful sound. I imagine it's the sound of the Shekhinah, the Spirit of the Holy Presence, coming a little bit closer to be with us on this new year. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hitatef b'tzitzit. ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la. Page 122.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama. Shenatata bi Tehorahi, Tehorahi.
We're on page 141. If you would please rise. Amen. Amen. Yeheshme Rabba Mevora Le'olam Me'amaya Yitbarach. B'richu Tushbechata v'nechemata Imeru. Amen. 142. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Please be seated. On page 145. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who make the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and the crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, dear star, that just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness, in kindness. Shemo. Amen. 146 at the top. Adonai Eloheinu, Chemela gedola v'tera, chamalta leinu, Chemela gedola v'tera, chamalta leinu, v'ha'erenenu בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחל לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל הגדול והנורא פתחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך.
ברוך אתה אדוני,
שמו
אוהב עמו ישראל, באהבה.
Amen. Please rise on page 150. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. On page 164. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. hayam yachad kulam hoduvim lechu ve'amru Adonai imoch leolam vaed. Yisrat Yisrael uvdechinu mecha Yehuda veYisrael Aleinu Adonai tzvot shelo kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Ka'al Yisrael Amen. Every few years, used to be 2, now it's every 3 years, we have a new president of Temple Beth Avodah. Should be for the country, but that's a different story. So, sorry. Anyway, we have a new president, and we get to learn from each one of them their great strengths and the things that matter most to them, their convictions, their beliefs, and how it affects the policies and the direction of the temple. It really is a team approach that we take. Our president, who is making her debut, this is her first year, is not really making much of a debut at all. Stacey Schwartz was born and raised in this congregation. Her parents, Bonnie and Lou Millender, were key leaders early on, and her mom, Bonnie, continues to be part of the leadership of this congregation. She is thoughtful. She is fun. She is, without a doubt, and I say this with peace and love to all of the former presidents who are here, without any question, she's the most physically fit of any president we have ever had. John, I don't know. I think, is that... Okay, good. I just want to make sure. I don't want to mess with it. So, what a great joy it is then to have a woman who is raised up in this place, who knows it from the inside, who literally has made it part of her life, now become the leader of this congregation, and to direct the board and to be present for so much that is so good about what we do. So it's really an honor and a privilege to invite our president to share some words with you on this Rosh Hashanah.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Wishing all of you a very happy and a healthy new year. I spend my days teaching in the business school at Boston College. And the first class of every semester, I start by telling my students a little about myself. As I pass out my syllabus, I acknowledge that over the next 14 weeks, I will inevitably learn a lot about each one of them. And I think it would be a bit odd if they didn't learn a little about me. Since you all are going to hear from me for the next 3 years, I want to begin by telling you a little bit about myself and my connection to this temple. My dad, Louis Millender, was born in Monroe, Georgia, where there were very few other Jewish families. Shortly after, his family moved to Dalton and ultimately Atlanta, where I was born. My mom, Bonnie Millender, was from Shaker Heights, Ohio. The two met when my dad went to Cleveland for an internship following medical school at Emory University. My father's medical training brought us to Natick and then Newton, more specifically Lovett Road, around the corner when I was 1.5. I attended Memorial Spalding, Brown Junior High, and Newton South High School. Like so many of the other kids, I walked to Hebrew school from elementary school with my friends, spent Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays learning from some of the best, like Mrs. Gordon, Mrs. Ben Mayer, and our very own past president, Rich Blacker. I was consecrated here, had my bar mitzvah here during my mother's Beth Avoda presidency. I was vice president of Bagel, active in Nifty, and when I was 16, I spent a summer in Israel with Nifty. Rabbi Miller married Carl and me, performed my dad's funeral, and hung the mezuzah in my first home in Newton. TBA was such a huge part of my childhood. My father was on the board of TBA in Rabbi Miller's early years. He co-chaired a very successful fundraising effort that raised over $1 million for our endowment fund that still helps to sustain the temple today. He chaired the physicians team for CJP and inspired Jewish doctors throughout the Boston area to support CJP generously. I remember as a child overhearing my dad's passionate solicitation phone calls in the other room. My father worked closely with Barry Schrade to create a partnership between CJP and the synagogues in the Boston area, and was very involved in the effort to bring Russian refuseniks to the United States, participating in a mission to Russia to help that cause. My mother started her involvement at TBA by chairing adult education, then the religious school, and went on to become vice president and president. She was also the regional vice president for the URJ and a member of the board for the Bureau of Jewish Education. My mom has continued her involvement here at Temple. She has been on the board since 1971, participates in many committees, and has always been and continues to be my biggest advocate. As an adult, Rabbi Stern performed baby namings for all three of my children, Sam, Emma, and Olivia. He officiated at Sam and Emma's B'nai Mitzvah with Olivia's to come in 2020, and God willing, will be here for their Midrashah graduations, one being this year. Temple Beth Avoda is my home, and you are all my family. My childhood and who I am today was molded here. My values, what I believe in, family, community, and giving back, all started here. Everything I learned at Temple Beth Avoda, both as a child and as an adult, are lessons that are not measurable in a classroom and could not be taught anywhere else. I have grown so much as an active participant and as an emerging leader. From the work we started here at TBA around community organizing, I learned how important the power of numbers are, believing in a cause, joining together for that cause, and then passionately expressing those concerns to bigger and bigger audiences. Working with Abby Shapiro, our immediate past president, on the Torah Project, celebrating our temple's 50 years in existence, and just this past year, celebrating Rabbi Stern's 20 years here, have all been extraordinary milestones, and I am so proud to be a part of each one of those. I learned and continue to learn how important community is. Together we created a Torah. Together we acknowledged how much we have grown over 50 years. And together we rejoiced in having our spiritual leader, Rabbi Stern, for 20 years. Throughout this past year, we raised close to $3 million for Rabbi's 20th campaign. And I'm thrilled that together we are moving forward with a beautiful renovation that will begin soon. So what else will we do together as a community this year? One of our missions is around the idea of engagement. As part of our vision, engagement will focus on the effort to embrace our diversity and reach out to those currently not engaged in Jewish life. I believe that everyone can feel at home here. As the URJ states in their literature, Judaism must meet people where they are at today to thrive tomorrow. As a movement, we stand for a Judaism that is inclusive and open. We believe that there is more than one authentic way to be Jewish. Here at TVA, we strive to be a diverse, inclusive synagogue. We will grow stronger and more vibrant as we welcome and incorporate the diversity that is the reality of modern Jewish life. We plan on reaching out to surrounding areas such as Dedham, Jamaica Plain, Roslindale, and West Roxbury in order to expand our base and introduce new members into our community. We plan to expand our protocol on how we welcome new members that will include periodic check-ins during their first 2 years. We plan on bringing back Shabbat readers, ambassador programs to connect new members to those more established and comfortable. In addition, we hope to facilitate more interaction during programs, whether it is icebreakers, name tags, or simply board representation, reaching out to someone new. As Dr. Ron Wolfson states, improving signage, readers at the door, and name tags represent only the beginning of a transformative process that moves an institution from an ostensibly busy place with a calendar full of programs to an organization deeply committed to becoming a community of relationships. What really matters is that we care about the people we seek to engage. When we genuinely care about people, we will not only welcome them, we will listen to their stories, we will share ours, and we will join together to build a Jewish community that enriches our lives. We want to know your stories, your hopes and dreams. How do you spend your days? In order to accomplish this, we plan to highlight different members on our website or up on our walls. Our engagement goals are ambitious and exciting, and they will not happen overnight. But we truly want to know more about you. So please, this is the year. Tell us what you want, share your thoughts with us, and help us engage each other and our community. Our board of directors will guide us in reaching our engagement goals, as our role is ultimately to make decisions for what is best for the synagogue. As we grow and learn together, we will continue to be your trusted servants in fulfilling that goal. I am excited, proud, humble, and extremely grateful to have this opportunity to be your temple president. I have gotten so much from this synagogue, from the time I was a little girl sitting on my dad's lap in services with Margaret Miller calling me Buttons, to standing here today. My hope is that I can now give back all that I have gotten. And with your help and your support, we will do this together. Amen.
Amen. We continue our service on page 166 with tefillah, with the central portion of our service, of really any service, whether it's a holiday, a Shabbat, even a weekday service, and that its contents underscore the deepest and most ardent prayers that are part of our tradition and deep in our hearts. I ask you to please rise. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ana na 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 Adonai. Ana na 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 Svatai Tivta. Ana na 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ana na 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 Adonai. Ana na 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 Svatai Tiftach. Ana na 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avoteinu V'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Ve'Elohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים,
וקונה
הכל,
וזוהר חסדי אבות ואימהות,
ומביא גאולה לבניהם, למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים.
מלך עוזר, מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה
אדוני.
מגן אברהם לעזרת שרה.
אמן.
הגיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רק
הושיע מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, תומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך מימיתו מחייב ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אל הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים.
ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
מחיי הכל.
Amen. On 174. תענה תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום, ובוא תינשא מלכותך. 78. Ashana yikatevun, yikatevun, uvyom tzom kippur yechatevun, yechatevun, kama ya'avorum vechama yibareun, mi ychya mi yamut, mi v'kitzo mi lo v'kitzo. Berosh Hashana yikatevun, yikatevun, uvyom tzom kippur yechatevun, yechatevun. Mi va'esh mi va'mayim, mi va'cherev mi va'chaya, mi va'ra'av mi va'tzama. Berosh Hashana yikatevun, yikatevun, uvyom tzom kippur yechatevun, yechatevun. Mi varash mi v'magefa, mi v'chanika umi v'skila, mi yanuach umi yanua, mi yashkit umi yeturaf. Berosh Hashana yikatevun, yikatevun, uvyom tzom kippur yechatevun, yechatevun, mi yishalev umi yityaser, mi ya'ani umi ya'ashir, mi yushpal umi yarum. Berosh Hashana yikatevun, yikatevun, uvyom tzom kippur yechatevun, yechatevun. On Rosh Hashanah we plunge like swimmers into a sea of words. On Yom Kippur the sea rises, then crests, and we emerge sealed by the wax, warmed by the fire of braided candle. The new year is like a trailhead opening wide before us. The day of fasting, narrow, breathless, so quick to close. We contemplate a new year, and this we know. Some of us will live, and some of us will die. Some will die young, and some very old. Some by water, and some by fire. Some by sword, and some by beast. Some by hunger, and some by thirst. Some by plague, and some by earthquake. Some by stoning, and some by strangling. Some of us will feel at ease. Some will feel restless. Some will have peace of mind. Some will have strife. Some will be tranquil. Some will be tormented. Some will be raised high. Some will be brought low. Some will have riches. Some will be impoverished. Even so, the way we act, the way we speak, the way we meet God's image in ourselves and in others, these things have great power to make our lives matter. Therefore, let us make whole the broken shards, green and thick the withering grass. Let the wind fill us with urgency for life. Let dreams give birth to justice and goodness. God of holiness, God of hope, let us glimpse your truth as we attach our hopes to yours. But the return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. On page 184. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch ol haaretz, Kevodo.
Adir, Adirenu Adonai, Adonenu Adir, Shimcha b'chol haaretz.
Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimkomo. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Loch Adonai leolam, Elohayich Tzion, ledor vador. Hallelujah. Leolam va'ed, ki hamelech gadol v'kadosh atah. Baruch atah Adonai hamelech hakadosh. Please be seated. We continue silently. On page 215, and may you partake of God's peace. To think the same way, to share the same opinions, this is not peace. Unity is not uniformity. True peace comes through the expression of differences, many perspectives, each offering a partial view of the truth. Shalom means wholeness. Only when we open ourselves to understand all sides of an issue will we attain peace. And so it is written, Torah scholars increase peace in the world. Through their disagreements, truth will emerge, and we will find shalom.
Baruch Shemo. Amen.
I know last year I confused some of you by not officially announcing I was starting my sermon, and you were worrying the whole time. Is there another coming? So I wanted to clarify, this is the sermon. This one. Bill Lowry wakes up one morning after being up half the night to start the day. He goes to shave, and even while he's shaving, he opens up this notebook on the sink that's a list of all the new products he has to be responsible for representing. And he's trying to learn they're complicated medical devices, and he's trying to learn how to pronounce them, not to mention what they do and what the difference is between them. And so he's just kind of overwhelmed with this task. He says goodbye to his wife. He walks outside, and as he gets in his car, he sees his neighbor. Hi, neighbor. Neighbor goes, "Oh, how you doing?" And then, "I'm just fine, going to work." And his neighbor says, "Hey, guess what? The encyclopedia had puppies." And he says, "Wait a minute, Fido is an encyclopedia?" And the owner said, "Well, last time I looked." So Bill Lowry scratches his head and gets back in his car, and off he goes to work, and everything is doing just fine. But as the day goes on, more and more people around him are speaking to each other, and they understand each other just fine, but he doesn't understand them. They seem to be speaking English, they're using English words, but they're not the words that represent what he thinks they do. So they're getting increasingly opaque as they talk, until finally, by the end of the workday, he doesn't understand anything that's going on around him. Not a word. He can't even communicate, because when he uses the words he was using all these years since he was born to communicate his ideas, no one understands what he's saying. It's gobbledygook to them, and his whole world is becoming gobbledygook. He ends up being cut off and alone in this sea of language, which is at once familiar and yet completely alien. All he can do is sit in his solitude and wonder what's going on. Well, what does Bill Lowry do? What is he to do? Well, in this sad moment, he walks upstairs after he gets home to his first grader's bedroom. And he takes his son's first grade reader, the one with the pictures and the words underneath, and he starts learning all of these words that he thought he knew, but now he doesn't. He must learn to live in a world he thought he recognized, but he can no longer navigate. He must relinquish old ideas and old understandings that were absolutely bedrock to his life. He must begin again. Now, I don't know if this resonates with any of you, this particular story. If you were Twilight Zone watchers, and the original black and white with Rod Serling, may he rest in peace, one of the most extraordinary, most creative television writers of this or any period, and this is a period of television writers. This was the rebooted version after he died in 1985. This was an episode that was written by Rockne O'Bannon, and I don't know why, but it has stuck with me for 30-something years. There is something about it that was terrifying to me. This notion to be in a world surrounded by language I recognize yet makes no sense, and that I cannot enter into because I don't have the words. Now, obviously, I love language. I talk all the time. I love talking to other people, listening to podcasts, to music. The idea that I could be cut off like that, it always haunted me, this story. And recently, it has really come back out of the depths of my unconscious to the foreground. It's right out there, smack dab in the middle. Because lately, I have to admit to you, I feel a little bit like Bill Lowry. There are these words I always thought I understood and I assumed I could use that now I can't. I thought I understood sort of the basic concepts, the worldview of this culture, of this society. But now I listen to conversations, and people are talking about transgender identity, about microaggressions, about cisgender, and gender dysphoria, and gender queer, and more. And I listen, and I don't know what they're talking about. And so I think, where do I go? Where's my first grade reader? So I go to the internet. There's even more words I don't understand. I am flummoxed. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to be lost in the 21st century. I want to be found. I want to be woke. I want to understand. I want to participate. But where is the access point for me? How do I begin to understand this? And I don't know. I want to know what the rules are. If I like how a person is dressed, no matter what their gender, am I allowed to say, "You look great"? Or is that a microaggression? No, you're laughing. I'm asking you the question. There's no punchline here. I'm a natural. I love to hug people. Is it okay? Can I hug older people, younger people, kids? Am I allowed to do that? I believe there's a sacred bond in human contact. So is it okay? Do I have to ask first? And if I have to ask first, is asking a microaggression? Am I confronting someone with something that makes them uncomfortable? Am I threatening someone by asking what I always thought was not a loaded question? An act that I always believed and still do is a natural, genuine, non-aggressive, non-sexual, non-threatening gesture of peace and love. There's no rule book. And if you Google the question, you will get virtually every possible answer. So what do I do? Where's my first grade reader? I want that book. Give me a sign. Give me something I can understand, I can work with. So a few months ago, I was sitting in my dining room. I was with my son, Jonah, his wife, Maggie, and with their friend, whose name I will call Alicia to protect the innocent. And we were sitting along with my wife around the table. And I want to say to the younger parents who are there, and for the older parents, you will agree with me, I know. There's this point you reach with your older children where you can have a conversation that is not about, oh, pick up your clothes, or oh, you're out late, but it's like, well, what do you think about this situation? What does it mean to have a president like we have? And you have a real conversation, and they're so smart. And you say, "Oy, I'm shepping such nachas from having a real conversation about real stuff." You just think it makes all that struggle worthwhile because you've worked hard and poof, they're mensches. It's amazing. And even if not such mensches, at least they talk good. And so we were schmoozing about adult stuff, and it was quite wonderful. And Alicia, my kid's friend, is from Brooklyn. I know, center of the universe these days. And we were talking about stuff, and they talked about a friend of a friend. He said, yes. Well, she said, my friend is the co-founder of The Wing. I said, hi, The Wing. What's The Wing? She said, oh. She looked at me, and I thought, uh-oh, something I was supposed to know. She said, yeah, the Wing is a women's-only workspace. There's a difference. A workspace in New York City. They have 2 of them, are going to be building more in a few different cities all over the country. It's a fabulous success. And the thing is, it's an exclusively women's membership. And I said, and I shouldn't have said anything, but I said, well, gee, I said, all these years, I thought the whole idea was to de-gender exclusive male clubs, like the Harvard, like virtually any university club. They were all males only, and I thought that was the trend. And then I just looked up, because I was curious, how many women's-only colleges are in America, and how many male-only colleges are in America. So I looked it up. There are 4 men's colleges in America, none of them you've heard of. I promise you. I never heard of them, and I'm sure you didn't either. How many women's only schools are there? 40. And I will tell you, you've heard of many of them. I'm not talking about ones that have switched. I don't count Vassar, just like I don't count Wesleyan as a men's only school. There are 40. And then I thought, well, I don't get it. The disparity is confusing to me. Of course it's confusing to me. So I asked Alicia about the logic of it all. I said, I have to assume that at least some of the project that these women are working on in the wing include men either on their staff or men that are investors, men who are customers. Surely the wing allows at least for there to be meetings where men can come. No, there are no men allowed in the wing. And she said, you don't understand. She said, do you know, there's a study that was done. If you take 10 women, very accomplished, very high level in their industry, in their profession, and they are together in a meeting, and you bring one man in, and then you keep track of who's talking, the statistics are ridiculously skewed, and it works like this. The man talks more than anybody else in the entire room. And even for these women sitting there who are accomplished and deeply professional in all that they do, it is as if they are trained to step back and allow the man to speak. And I said, well, I mean, certainly that's not all men. I just said, she said, look, women need to feel safe. This provides them a free, non-judgmental workplace. I said, just seems a little extreme. Oh. She said, of course you think that. You are a white male of privilege. And I said, what? Me? Well, come on. A white man of privilege? I mean, I've raised 3 daughters. I have a granddaughter. I work with, my staff is exclusively women. Although Doug is there too. I don't want to leave Doug out. It's me and Doug. Everybody, we work with women all the time. So I'm not just some cardboard cutout. Because of my anatomy, you would judge me? You would exclude me? And then the coup de grace, putting my head right there on the block without even knowing it, my wife said, in her usual sweet and measured way, get it through your head. You are a white male of privilege. And you have been enabled all your life to do things and go places that most people don't, including me. Here's my wife. She's a rabbi. She's a chaplain at Brand. I mean, and my wife, 38 years. Give me a break. I thought we were on, you were my backup, And then she said, you, my friend, are not a part of this conversation. Psst. Not part of a conversation? Me? I'm part of every conversation. Because I'm oh yeah, because I'm a white male of privilege. It's what I am. I want an asterisk. I pulled out the Holocaust card. You can do that with other Jewish people in the room. You can't do that in a mixed group. It's not fair. But I thought, so I said, white male privilege didn't help much at Auschwitz, did it? To which she looked at me like, That's where you're going? But you think that carries water with me, boy chick? No, it does not. I didn't know what to do. What are my options now? How do I navigate the world with no discernible role? A world wherein I no longer have carte blanche. No pun intended. So a couple of years I was cruising down Walnut Street at night, the really dangerous part of Newton. Walnut Street at night. So I was driving down Walnut Street, and I was in a hurry because I wanted to get to Walgreens before they closed. So I can't admit to you that I was speeding, but the pedal was definitely to the metal. And I got pulled over, and I pulled into Trowbridge Avenue, which is along on the right side. At night, there ain't no street light. So I just kind of pulled into that street. It was the right place to be. And there I was sitting in my car, and and police do that thing where they sit in the car in their cruiser for a few minutes, and the whole time you're thinking, what are they going to find? Like, what about me? But here's the thing. I knew for a fact if I were a man of color, I would be sitting there and I would be fearful for my life. Even in Newton, where we have a sensitive, progressive police force. Members of this congregation are part of that police force. And I know that they work hard to achieve justice. But my guess would be, for a man of color, that wouldn't matter. Too much water under the bridge. Too many innocent lives have been lost. My fear as I sat there, my insurance. That's what I was afraid of. And I thought, man, kind of a slightly different kind of world. When the Black Lives Matter movement began, there were some white people who took offense. They said, hey, why this reductionist thinking? Why this exclusivity? I matter. I'm important. The complainants were people that are not used to being left out of anything. Black Lives Matter. Of course, all lives matter. That's not the point. The point of the movement is to focus on one community whose experiences of oppression and suffering and violence are unknown to white men of privilege. And I will tell you something else. If you look at the average curriculum in the average high school to this day, even in universities, I think it is fair to say that we know nothing about American slavery that we can talk about in more than 2 paragraphs, and then we're done. We don't know anything more. We've learned nothing about the experience of members of our community who have suffered under the yoke of slavery in this country so this country could grow into what it is. The White House was built by slaves. What fuels Black Lives Matter is the contention that for too long, black men and boys, as well as black women and girls, have been beaten and killed, sometimes by law enforcement, sometimes by racist murderers. And often the perpetrators, no matter who they are, most of them, white, in fact, pretty much all of them, but not all, are white men of privilege. And almost every time, they have gotten away with their crimes. The injustice is unquantifiable. Now, there were Jews, and I was part of this group, that got a little bit ticked off when Black Lives Matter introduced their manifesto, and it included a paragraph about supporting Palestinian suffering and oppression. And I thought, I'm with you when it comes to the racism stuff. But I'm getting a little uncomfortable. Why you bring up the Palestinians? What have they got to do with it? And then I realized I was sounding like those white folks who are really big on supporting Martin Luther King, until he came out against the Vietnam War. And those white males of privilege said, whoa, 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 whoa. Go with the civil rights thing. That's your strong suit. But don't talk about Vietnam. And anyway, how is that relevant? How is that relevant? Of course, Martin Luther King understood the war in Vietnam was a travesty, a crime being committed against innocent Vietnamese people, against the people that were being sent there, many of them African American, many of them white, many of them of other races and backgrounds, and they were being sent to die. How is that relevant? So, do I agree with what they say completely about their alliance with the Palestinians? No. Does that mean it's no good? No. It's their manifesto. It's their vision. It's their experience. Do you think it's difficult to understand why people who believe themselves to be oppressed will support others who are oppressed? When there are people who are being arrested and beaten for what they see as no reason or for political reason, and they see someone else somewhere else who's experiencing what they believe to be the same thing, you don't think there's a natural connection, a natural affinity? Of course there is. There has to be. So, I think we have to come to a new understanding about who and what we are. Not easy. It's a good thing to kick off for a new year, I think. To utter these words, these 4 words, difficult words to say. It's not about me. I'm going to say it again. It's not about me. Frankly, this should be a mantra for all of us white males of privilege. It's not about me. Barry Nolan wrote in Boston Magazine a few years ago, wherever you look, by almost any metric, any statistic, it works out to be a pretty sweet deal to start out life as a white man. The system is so stacked in our favor, it's almost embarrassing. It's like our mothers set up the world for us. For white men, life is almost like T-ball. We are almost always guaranteed to get on base. But as Bob Dylan sang 54 years ago, I don't mean to make you feel so old, but that's when he sang it for the first time, the times, they are a-changin'. There's a dramatic shift in our world. The untouchable, the people that were thought to be able to do what they want no longer have impunity. Even a giant like Les Moonves is now shamed, as he should be, and being kicked out from his presidency of CBS, as he should have been. People of conscience are being called upon to stand up for social justice. We are being challenged to live by the Jewish values we profess right from here, from our comfortable positions of power and prestige. In this call for social justice, there are those who fight against it, those who claim that women want too much. The Black Lives Matter is all about hatred and exclusion, that transgendered people have no right, they're a false, they're a phony, that they need not be recognized for who they are, that immigrants are only desperately dangerous people that should be kicked out. My God, we are being told that truth is not truth. In fact, there are even those who call the term social justice a ruse for a socialist agenda. The first thing we must do after repeating the mantra, it's not about me, is to pledge to listen. We need to learn from the people around us that we have too often disregarded and judged. Do you know all those almost always women that work in hotels all over this country? Do you know they are just now passing a law that requires their employers to give them panic buttons? That they are attacked so often while they're cleaning rooms that they are defenseless. They actually have a panic button to mandate it by law. What kind of world is this? We need to learn from them, the powerless, the vulnerable. We needn't agree with everything we hear, but we must listen. When my wife said I had no part of the conversation, it broke my heart. But I had to listen and understand what she said, what she meant. That the wing wasn't built for my needs, but for somebody else's, enough somebody else's that it is an ongoing enterprise. I've got to listen to new ideas. We all do. I've got to listen because I got to know what it's going to mean in 2045 when I, a white male, will be a minority in this country. I will try to listen better, much better than I ever have. I invite all of you to do so, but I especially invite my brothers to listen. This post-Me Too world, this world of introduction to Black Lives Matter, it's a changing, shifting world. As hard as it is to hear this, we need to move over just a little bit to acknowledge the power in the struggle of other people. We need to listen to their stories. It's time to learn a new language. My friends, it is time to listen.
I'll take yours. Together we can open doors. If you see me and I see you for who we are, then we'll get through. If we sing one song, we stand strong. You're alone and you're confused. You witness hatred and abuse. You don't know what to do. You see a world so full of strife. So many seek a better life. You ask, what can I do? Take my hand, I'll take yours. Together we can open doors. If you see me and I see you for who we are, then we'll get through. If we sing one song, we stand strong. No more hatred, no more war. We'll rise up one day more. We know what to do. Take my hand, I'll take yours. Together we can open doors. If you see me and I see you for who we are, then we'll get through. not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone, we are not alone. We are not alone. Sing one song. Sing one song. Sing one song. We stand strong. We are not alone.
Such extraordinary music. And they're ours. Yeah, they're ours. They're our kids. It's fabulous. Thank you. We continue our service on page 223 with Avinu Malkeinu. I'd like to invite our ark openers, Matthew Miller, Harold Lycon, Bill Cohen, and Stacy Gabriel. If you'll please rise. Came to give you a hand in case you want one. Good all day, man. Take your time. Sit on this side, Bill. Stacy, come on this side. Sit right over there. Two 23.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamo Aleinu, ve'aleinu,
Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Dever, V'cherev Ra'av, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Kotzar, Umaskin, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu masim, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, V'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu masim. I would like to invite to the Bima our Torah readers, Sidney Scheinkoff, Hannah Hicks, Jonah Goldfarb, and Adam Cohen. And I'd like to invite the Torah carriers, Bev Cohen, Lauren Siff, Robin Welsh, and Beth Hicks. If you'll please join us on the Bima. Congregation, if you would please turn to page 227. Adonai, v'yein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz yemo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Avarachamim eitiv avirtzonecha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Ki v'cha levad batachnu, Melech el ram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving and true, showing mercy to the 1,000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah Shemo. Taste the ark, everybody. Gadlu Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo yachdav. And you're off. Coach, you follow anybody you want. Have a good time. Say what, everybody? Tracy, you follow anybody you want. You can't. Go on. Bashamayim uvaretz, Ticho bashamayim uvaretz, Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, Yamid naaseh lechol erosh.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש
read Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, every year we ask ourselves, why do we put ourselves through that this difficult story? A father willing to sacrifice his son. I think there are those who say it's about having complete faith. Whatever God says, you do. You don't question. I would like to believe there's something a little bit more subversive going on. Because I think, in fact, the question demands that we ourselves ask, what am I willing to sacrifice? What will I give up? What am I willing to do that signifies complete submission? And I would have to say that each of us has our line, each of us has our limit, the place we will not go. For all of us, it's different. But I would say that if we think about Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, as a test, that Abraham's willingness to ultimately offer up his son is not passing the test. And I think it bears mentioning, as I have before, but particularly this afternoon after that sermon, that had God gone to Sarah first, it said, Sarah, will you offer up your son, your only son, the one you had in old age, the one that you labored, literally labored through for 9 months, you held on to through all of the ache and pains and all of the issues. Are you, after all that, willing to give up your son? God would have heard an answer that God was probably not used to hearing. Sarah would have said, "Are you, God, with all due respect, are you crazy? I can't give up that which is part of me. I can give you love and devotion. I can give you cash. I can give you credit. I can give you a lot, God, but I will not give you this part of me." And I hope, in my most subversive sense of the text, what it's really teaching us is if one day all the parents in the world said, "No, you may not have my son. No, you may not have my daughter." They deserve to live. That it would be a messianic moment and the walls would all come down. And I pray that we all remember just how valuable the life of not only our own children might be, but the life of every parent's child. They should never be separated from their parents. They should never be forced to suffer at the whims of evil politicians, evil governments, evil men and women. That, I think, is the deepest, most subversive truth of this text. And I hope into the new year we carry it with a sense of determination and strength. The Torah portion is on page 240. And now I'd like to ask, and for some of you this is going to be difficult, but if you have been at Temple Beth Avodah for more than 45 years, would you either stand up or, if it's difficult, wave? So 45 years or more. Stay standing. We're so honored, so honored. While you're standing, if you've joined our temple over the past 3 years, would you please stand up? If you joined the temple over the past 25 years, would you please stand up? If you went to the temple preschool, would you please stand up? If you sent a kid to the temple preschool, would you please stand? If you had a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah here, would you please stand up? If your child had a bat mitzvah here, would you please stand up? If you're a guest here visiting for the first time, would you please stand up? And if you're one of those people that never gets called on, you don't win anything, you don't get nothing. So I'm going to say, for you, would you please stand up? Amachaya. And now, what I'd like to ask everyone to do is to join me in doing the blessing over the Torah together, one big aliyah. 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten. Amen. Now I'd like to ask you to please be seated. And I'd like to continue with our Torah reading with this added custom. When whoever is chanting the Torah begins, if you're related to the person who's chanting, would you just stand up when they're doing their Torah portion? It's a Sephardic tradition I learned from my predecessor. I think it's a beautiful tradition. So if you're related to the person who's chanting, stand up while they're chanting, and it's a way for us to see you and say thank you for being part of this person's life. And so we continue with the first aliyah, and I'm going to ask, I have so many lists up here, it's just, Sidney Shankoff is our first reader, and you're on.
Vayehi ahar hadivarim haele v'ha'elohim nisa et Avraham vayomer elav Avraham vayomer hineni vayomer kachna bincha et yechidcha asher ahavta et Yitzhak velech lecha el eretz hamoria v'ha'alehu sham leola al ahad heharim asher omar elecha vayashkem Avraham babo Vayahavosh et Hamoro, Vayika et Shenei Ne'aravito, Ve'et Yitzhak Beino, Vayvaka at Seola, Vayakom Vayele El Hamakom, Asher Amar Lo Elohim.
Hannah Hicks.
Bayom Hashem Lishi Vayisa Avraham et Einav Vayar et Hamakom Merahok Vayomer Avraham el Ne'arav Shevu lahem po im ha'hamor va'ani v'hana'ar neleha ad ko V'nishave v'nashuva alehem Vayika Avraham et azeh ha'olah Vayasem al Yitzhak beno Vayika beyado et ha'esh ve'et ha'ma'ahelet Vayelhu shnehem yaktav Vayomer Yitzhak al Avraham aviv Vayomer aviv Vayomer hineni veni Vayomer hine ha'esh ve'ha'etzim ve'ayehaseh le'olah Vayomer Avraham Elohim yir elo haseh le'olah b'ni Vayelhu shnehem
Yachdav. Jonah Goldfarb.
Vayavo'u el hamakom asher amar lo ha'Elohim vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach vaya'aroch et ha'etzim vaya'akod et Yitzchak beno vayasem oto el hamizbeach mimal la'etzim Vaishlach Abraham et yado, Vaikach et hama'achelet, lishchot et beno, Vaikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim, Vayomer Abraham, Abraham, Vayomer hineni, Vayomer al tishlach yadecha el hanar, Ve'al ta'as lo me'uma ki ata yadati ki yere Elohim ata ve'lo chasakta et bincha et yechidecha mimeni vayisa Avraham et einav vayar vehine ayil achar Ne'eches basevach bekarnav Vayelech Avraham Vayikach et ha'ayil Vaya'aleu le'olah tachat beno Vayikra Avraham Shem hamakom hahu Adonai yir'eh Asher yomer hayom Behar Adonai yir'eh Vayikra Malach Adonai el Avraham Shenit min hashamayim.
Adam Cohen.
Vayomer inishbati ne'um Adonai ki ya'an asher asita et hadavar hazeh velo chasachta et bincha et yechidecha Ki varech avarechecha Veharba arbe et zaracha Kehochevei hashamayim Vechachol asher al sefat hayam Vayirash zaracha et sha'ar oyevav Vehit baruchu v'zaracha Kol goyei haaretz Ekev asher shamata Bekoli Vayashuv Avraham El Ne'arav Vayakumu Vayelechu Yachedav El Be'er Shava Vayeshev Avraham Be'er Shava.
Wow. Yesher Koach to all of our readers. I'd like to ask, as everyone rises for the blessing after the Torah, I'd like to make sure to ask every Torah table to dress your Torah. Every table Torah, please dress your Torah, except for you guys. Let us now do the blessing after. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai notena Torah. Amen. I would like to invite the David Cohen and family Hagba and Galila team to the Bima. Are you going to lift? No, not sure. Okay, so are you on? You ready? Lifnei v'nei Yisrael. Lift it up a little bit. Pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Have a seat over there.
Shalom
Make sure it's, yeah. Say shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Torres, please come in. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. She was trying. What a girl. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yeah, I'm done today. Ya Elai, 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 Elai. Ya Elai, 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 Elai. Ya Elai, Ya Elai, Elai, Elai. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba. ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם
וכל נתיבותיה שלום.
השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם. Elena was on page 286. לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית.
שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות,
לא
ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה.
שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי
המלכים,
הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר. Folks may be seated. Thank you so much for a beautiful service. Thank you. על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. There are so many that we remember on Rosh Hashanah. People who have died in this year and in seasons past. You reach a certain age and you realize as you're going into the new year who's no longer standing at your side. Sometimes it's part of what, after all, is the nature of life and death. But sometimes it's very unexpected. Sometimes it's very tragic. And it just opens up such pain that we never really knew existed and never really understood even how to define. And one of the things we learn is that in order to be a full, complete human being, we take that loss and then we keep moving forward with it. not in that way that sometimes well-meaning people say. It's like, it's enough. Now you just grow out of it. You move forward. And we do move forward. That is the nature of humanity. We are programmed. Our brains, the deepest animal part of our brains, pushes us forward. But even in that push, we're aware that we are changed. We are not the same person. But the best thing we can do, given that truth, is to embrace the new person that we become. Not to fight against it, but to embrace the sadness, to understand the loss as part of the new you. It's a lifelong struggle to do so. But it enables us to live in the way we know those we have loved and lost would have wanted us to live. This week is the yahrzeit anniversary for Samantha Bachman, Alexis Bachman, Max Derby, Alan Fain, Richard Gordon, Rose Green, Estelle Greenfield, Saul Katz, Bert Lang, Marion Lassar, Rose Levin, Sandra Levine, Daniel Lewin, Judith Mizell, David Reddick, Herb Siegel, Leon Scheinfield, Edward Swartz, Marion Wasserman, and the Shloshim observance for Herbert Cohen, Daniel Giroux, and Edith Pastor, all who have died in recent days. I'm so honored that today Rena and Joey are here, Philip and Lisa are here, two of Rabbi Miller's children and their partners. Yael's not here because she and her husband are bigwigs at Temple Emmanuel, but we know that her spirit certainly is here as well. Your dad would always sit right behind where John Bamel is sitting. That was his spot. And one of the most abidingly beautiful gifts I got from him is that he was all about appreciating being in this congregation. He showed it the way he shined. He would nod, he would sing too loud, he would do all of those things that would just touch my heart and make me feel he knew what was happening up here, and I knew what was happening there, but not really. It's kind of like that's the Olam Haba. That's what happens next. And he shared it with an open and loving heart. And I really do miss him, as I know you do too. And to let you know, in case you don't already, he is such a part of this place. And though he is gone, there are so many here who live their lives by what he taught them and how he took care of them. And I promised him that I would try to follow in his footsteps, to care and love as he cared and loved. We're honored that you're here. This is your home and always will be. And we're so glad that you've graced us with your divine and loving presence. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 292. If you would please rise. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayichon v'yomeichon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam me'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. May the one who brings peace to the heavens bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world. And let us all say amen. If you'll please be seated, Stacy Schwartz has a few important announcements for the coming day and days.
Shana Tova again. I wish you all a happy and a healthy new year. Thank you, Rabbi Stern and Susan and all the lovely musicians. You make it look so easy. And to the amazing Torah readers, Torah holders, thank you so much. So, I ask that you leave as quickly as you can. Grab a bag. The list of food items is stapled to the bag. We're donating to the Newton Food Pantry, the Greater Boston Food Bank, and Boston Medical Center Preventative Food Pantry, and of course, salmon and raisins to Jewish Family and Children's Services. You will also receive our program book with all the events and programs that are scheduled for this year. Take it home, look at it, add some things to your calendar. There's some great events and programs, and we'd love to see you all there. I invite you to join us tomorrow for the second day of Rosh Hashanah, when our dear own Jeff Tarmy will share his journey from sickness to health. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Also, it looks like it is not raining, so at 4 p.m., please join us at Newton City Hall for Tashlich, and then again tomorrow, there's a Tashlich at 4 p.m. in Dedham. Thank you all so much.
In terms of those bags that you're going to be getting, and you don't have to go so fast when you leave, because we don't have any other services, unless there's one I don't know about. Okay, good. We support Family Table, Center Street Pantry in Newton, the Greater Boston Food Bank, and the Preventative Food Pantry at Boston Medical Center. And they've come to depend on us, so please just check out your shopping list. As I always say, no expired palm oil, please. None of those mushrooms you bought for the recipe that you never used, or the label that came off the can. Don't give us that. We don't need that. But anything else that's on that list, we desperately do need. Stacy did mention the raisins. Very important that we bring those in to keep our promise. Not to mention cans of salmon, but more on that later. I just have one. We're going to conclude with the shofar service. Always the big climax, the trumpeting shofarot come out. But I just wanted to mention this. There's a couple more things. So, it has been a glorious past year, 20 years with you, and we celebrated like a Polish wedding over and over again. It was a machaya. It was wonderful. Part of that 20th anniversary that we shared was a campaign to raise $3 million. Now, when John Bamel was president some years ago, we did this lovely redesign and refurbishing of the sanctuary, and it's a machaya, and it's beautiful. On this side, in the social hall area, I think the Zukers did a big update, but I think it's been a few years since that update. And if you want to know how many years it's been, don't look at the carpet. Okay, don't look. No, don't look at the carpet. But it's definitely, we could use some new carpet. The dance floor, we need a little more room for simcha. We just need to spruce the place up. It's been 20 years, for God's sake, and your house, every once in a while, you got to do something every 20 years, and we need to do that. So we had this thought that we wanted to launch this campaign to make the light somewhat brighter, to maybe add, just to make it an inviting, wonderful place, and to keep up that tradition of beautifying the synagogue. In addition, we really decided we needed one extra space, an extra space in which we could have a smaller Shabbat evening service. We could have an adult lecture. We could have, when it's raining and we have a lot of preschool kids running in one place, we can actually put them in two places. They don't have to be at each other such tight. We can do that if we have an extra space. And we need to do that. We are so ready for that. Now, I talked to a lot of you about this campaign, so I don't want to sound like a schnorr. I don't. But, so here's the thing. Our goal was $3 million, and we're off by $140,000. I would love, you would make me so happy, we would make each other so happy if we just came up with another 140 grand. It's not like I can write a check for that, so I understand this is, it ain't hay. But if you haven't given to the campaign, it would be great. Anything would be welcome. And if you have already, if you could give a little more, what a machaya that would be. The point is, it would be such a beautiful New Year's greeting to say, we're ready to go. We're going to get down and start this work because we have reached our goal. We just need $140,000 more. And if you can help us in any way, please, please, I ask you with peace and love, help us get to that goal. Speaking of goals, just one more little thing, which is, many of you are givers of a sustaining gift. That is, when you pay your dues, you add something extra to it. It's called a sustaining gift. And over the years, we went from it being kind of a little anemic to last year, we raised almost $130,000. That, for us, that's big. That's big. So if you haven't done it yet, please, it would be such a machaya. It would be so wonderful. 130 grand. Oh, but I guess it's time for the next award. I'm being played off, but I guess you heard what I had to say, and it's all about being grateful, which is a great lead-in to this song and to the shofar service. So, if the shofar instrumentalists would please approach the bima.
If you have ever sung with us in Time to Be Grateful, we've been singing this for 3 years. If you sang on the Rabbi's video, if you sang this a few years ago with us, come on up. We want as many people to come and join us. For
And
this
would everyone
song.
please rise?
Everybody who wants, if you don't know it and you want to come on up, come on up.
It's the season of our lives. It's the time to be grateful. Open your heart, open your eyes. It's the time to be grateful. Right now, I'm gonna open my heart. It's time to be grateful. Open your heart, open your eyes. Reach out. Yes, yes. It's time to be grateful.
It's the season that we share, love our neighbor. A time to be grateful. Open your arms, reach out your hands, show that you care. A time to be grateful now. Right now. I'm gonna open my eyes. The time to be grateful. Open your heart. Open your eyes. Reach out your hand. A time to be grateful.
Now is the time, the place for God's grace for you. Now is the time.
A time to be grateful.
Give all you can, give a little more, spread the joy. That's what life is for. Thanks to the Lord. A time to be grateful. A time to be grateful.
והתשענו במצוותיו, וציוונו לשמוע קול שופר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Tekiah. Shvarim Teruah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shvarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shvarim Teruah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah. Shvarim. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah Gedolah. Wait. Woo! Shana Tova, everybody. Shana Tova, sweet, healthy new year.